Excellency Mr. Imran Khan, Director Executive Committee of SCO Regional Anti-Terrorist Structure, distinguished delegates, it is a pleasure to be in the beautiful city of Dushanbe for this landmark SCO summit. This moment is doubly auspicious as it coincides with the 30th anniversary of Tajikistan's independence. We extend heartiest congratulations to the brotherly people of Tajikistan. I also take this opportunity to facilitate President Emmanuel Rahman for his wise stewardship of SCO during Tajikistan's presidentship. Excellencies, the 20th anniversary of SCO is an important juncture to reflect on our journey so far. From the watershed moments in 2001, SCO has come a long way. Guided by the Shanghai spirit, SCO has steadily grown in size and stature. Today, SCO cumulatively represents 44% of the world population, 25% of the global landmass, and 20% of the global GDP. Impressive progress has been made in strengthening SCO normative and institutional basis and in developing practical cooperation on SCO's twin planks of security and socio-economic development. While SCO has done well to respond to old and new challenges, the increasingly complex global environment and geopolitical tensions would test our resolve in the times ahead. For our part, we must resist any drift towards bloc politics and stress that peaceful coexistence and cooperation, not confrontation, should be the main drivers of global politics. Excellencies, the COVID-19 pandemic afflicted the world in unprecedented ways. In sheer human suffering, the cost just cannot be calculated. A staggering 4.6 million people have lost their lives. 223 million people have been infected. While the public health systems were overwhelmed, economies worldwide faced downturn and recession. And most of all, the poor were hit the hardest everywhere, whether living in the impoverished south or the affluent north. For the first time in 20 years, the world saw a rise in absolute poverty. We in Pakistan adopted a collaborated strategy of smart lockdowns with simultaneous focus on saving lives, securing livelihoods, and stimulating the economy. A very difficult road to navigate. Our social protection program, which was called Asas Compassion, helped millions of families to survive. I also launched a global initiative for debt relief to help create fiscal space for developing countries, to mitigate the negative effects of the pandemic and achieve sustainable development. The advent of COVID vaccine in a relative short time is a miracle of science. We believe science should continue to guide the world's efforts as it combats the pandemic. Attempts to politicize the question of virus origin should be avoided, as it is divisive at a time when the world needs to unite. The vaccine should also be available to everyone on an equitable basis as a global public good. Excellencies, climate change is another existential threat that our planet faces. Mitigating its effects is rightly commanding the highest priority on global agenda. Pakistan's contribution to global emissions is negligible, yet we are amongst the 10 most vulnerable countries to negative effects of climate change. My government, I'm proud to say we've initiated a flagship program of planting 10 billion trees. Our initiative for Clean and Green Pakistan not only aims to protect nature and restore ecosystems, but also expand ecotourism and create thousands of new jobs for our youth. We're also committed to shifting our energy mix towards a clean and low carbon trajectory and are projecting 60% of our energy to be clean by 2030. We continue to work with the international community towards comprehensive implementation of Paris Agreement and mobilization of enhanced international climate finance to achieve our shared objectives. Excellencies, as the world marked the 20th anniversary of 9/11 attacks, we are all reminded that despite international community's earnest efforts, the threats posed by terrorism still persist. Associating one religion with terrorism has enabled far-right, populist and supremacist groups around the world to propagate, multiply and accumulate influence. In some cases, such extremist and bigoted ideologies have ascended to capture the state power in so-called democracies. The fight against terror should not be won if we ignore that these threats and challenges, the biggest of which is state terrorism, perpetrated against people living under foreign occupation in disputed territories. For decades, Pakistan has suffered from terrorism that was planned, supported, financed, and orchestrated by state entities from across the border. Outside the active zone of conflict, no other country has suffered more than Pakistan. We have suffered 80,000 casualties, an economic loss in excess of $150 billion, apart from millions of people being internally displaced. Yet our resolve remains strong. We will continue to be a reliable and a willing partner of the international community in the fight against terrorism and extremism. Excellencies, threats to international and regional peace and security is a vital interest of SCO. We believe faithfully implementing UN Security Council resolutions for peaceful settlement of outstanding disputes is a necessary condition for peace and indispensable for creating an environment of cooperation. Unilateral and illegal measures to change the status of disputed territories and violation of Security Council resolutions run counter to this objective. Such measures must be condemned and opposed firmly for being in violation of the SCO Charter and its well-established principles of interstate relations.